was younger, I believed I would be an artist, that was how I wanted to live my life, and I didn't. And so if I was going to do it, I wanted to do what I would have wanted to do when I was younger. So coming back to it, probably in 2013, I decided I was going to give it a go, that no matter whether I was older or not, or anybody wanted to look at it, I was going to give it a try. And then it just really became, I think, 3 years of working and trying to figure out what it was I really wanted to do. I did a submission for an open call, and it was accepted. It was an interesting thing because it actually is the first show I've ever done, and I feel like I was coming out, and the wall pieces were me. And so when I was doing these wall pieces, I always knew that I wanted something else that was even larger than what I was doing, that would belong to people who would come into the show. And that's what the ARC was about. It was about taking my time and money to build something kind of as a gift. I asked people to write on the interior walls of the ARC and share their own opinions of it. And I did ask people if they would share their thoughts about religion and its intersection with politics in particular, and how they felt about that. There was quite a few comments, I'm guessing, that were from women about legislating, issues with women's bodies, which, as it turns out, was a real concern. At one point, the gallery and people in the gallery were horrified because somebody actually came in and carved. They started carving into it. And they contacted me and said, "We are so sorry. Somebody has defaced it." And I said, "Well, what did they do?" I thought maybe it was something obscene. They said, "We'll put up more security cameras and we'll have somebody, make sure that nobody, does any more of this." And I just said, "Please don't. It's not that critical. So whatever happens, happens, and I'm fine with it." It ultimately was what I had hoped for, was that people would just claim it as their, as their own. They would use it, and they did. It got moved outside and destroyed. I have a photograph of every comment and drawing that was on it. And I feel fortunate that I had the opportunity for the show last year. It was a surprise, that it actually happened. And I will continue to put it out there, and maybe somebody else will, say, "We're interested, in the next thing that you're working on." Whether they do or not, I'm going to keep doing the work with the intention of being able to share it. If you look around my house, I actually had a dinner party for my mother at one point up here, and afterwards got a note from a friend of, the families who had been here and had never been to my home before, and she said, "Thank you so much for the dinner. It was lovely visiting your beautiful, austere home." And it was like, well, absolutely, it is. It's I'm sure people walk in and think, they just moved in and they haven't put anything up yet. And those three pieces, because I needed someplace to put stuff and I didn't want crates all over, but that wall used to be bare. It just very, very empty. And for me, it's really comfortable. And yet, when I'm thinking about what I'm doing and work, I want to push into those spaces. So I started building structures, and I would just focus on the exterior, and then I would close them up. And I was closing up one piece once, and I'm looking at the space inside, and I'm thinking, why am I not using this? And I started thinking about privacy and the fact that I really am a very private person, and kind of, reclusive, but what it is I would put in there that I would be more comfortable putting into a private space, and how at some point I'd look forward to getting to that point in the piece where I had the shell and I could just focus on what was going to go inside of it, and how I could change it, and how it was important that that interior space be totally different than the exterior. I know visually what I'm aiming for, but a lot of it has to do with a feeling. The one that's on the back wall there, it's open and allows light to come through it on the mirror, but because there's two mirrors in it, that one shape is mirrored into what looks like eyes on the interior, and it's called I Am Your Father. I was raised Jewish. It was my father's faith. My mother was Italian Catholic, and so it was a real mashup. And I got to see two very different groups of people and what their attitudes were and how they talked about other people and how they behaved. And I was very much turned off by Catholicism and the Christian religion. It actually frightened me as a child. But it was also my first introduction to religion, which has turned out to be a subject that really pops up in my work. I'd contacted Richard Dawkins to ask him if I could use a quote of his inside one of the pieces that's out in the other room. If you look in it, it's the one with the text in it. It was something where if somebody wanted to, they could ask themselves that question. And that was, if you hadn't been taught a particular religion or grown up, going to a particular church and following, your parents' beliefs, as an adult, if you'd had none of that experience, would you choose this as an adult to do this or to pick this particular religion if you decided you wanted religion in your life? And a lot of people who read it at the opening came up and wanted to talk about that, which I thought was interesting. They wanted to share their stories and their experiences because it wasn't aggressive, because it was just a question. So a lot of what I do, when you look inside some of those wall pieces, that's in there too. It's the exterior, the titles of the pieces have a very strong connection to my atheism and my feelings about religion, but some of the other stuff inside is very personal. All of it for me is just playing. And then when I think about moving stuff around, it's like it can't be arbitrary and random. It has to, at least for me, have some meaning. I have to be able to say that this is what this feels like. This is what this could mean. So I guess, even though I read about a lot of different things, or there are a lot of different subjects that I'm curious about that, enter into the work, a lot of it is still trying to understand who I am. Quiet, but art for me was a kind of language that I thought I could speak. And on my nursery school report card, the teacher was very, wordy with what she had to say. And she said that Lynne is the only one who can initiate her own projects and carry them out, and she prefers to work alone. I'll just do the work, and maybe I'll be lucky enough to find a place to put it. But I do feel an urgency in some ways still that I don't think I would feel if it was, I was 20 years younger or whatever. I do ask myself, like, how long can I do this? I think the young people who are starting out or young artists, you're like so lucky if you stick with it. And you are brave enough to stick with it. You can take any subject in the world that you want and apply it to art. You don't have to give up art to do it. So I guess if I'm going to be totally, I didn't have to give it up in order to do those other things. But I don't think I was capable of being competitive in the way that I saw people had to be competitive. I am, I think, strong in my own way when I'm just on my own in private and doing my work, but I don't think I was strong enough or to handle the ambition and the competition back then. Now I don't care. I mean, it's like, and if somebody was going to give me advice, it would have been to ignore that. The only person you need to be competitive with is yourself. You just need to push yourself. And you're learning anyway when you're young. Everybody's going to get old if they're lucky. And the worst part about it, about ageism, is that you grow up looking at older people. You develop your thoughts about older people from when you're young. And I know how I felt looking at somebody my age, that they'd already lived their life. They'd sort of reached the end. They'd done what they were going to do, that there wasn't more growth, more change and stuff. And when you're older and you reach that age and you have those feelings and thoughts, that's how you feel about yourself. I'm too old. Nobody's going to be interested. They want the young people. They want people that have decades to create a body of work, or there's all these reasons why it was too late. And then it was like, forget that. You just, not dead yet. So, but watch out. All I can say is people who are judging older people, watch out, because you are developing your attitude toward yourself at some point, how you're going to feel about yourself.